everybody, it's Beth. Welcome to Infinite Garden. It's been about 4 years since I stopped dyeing my hair, and to this day I still get comments and questions from people who want to stop dyeing their hair. And a common concern is that people are afraid that they will look older. The question, will I look older though, is at the core of what prevents people from moving forward with ditching the dye and embracing their natural silver hair. Today I wanted to tackle that question. It took me about 2 years to grow out my dye and about 3 years to get my hair to the length that I wanted it to. And now 4 years later, I've become used to having gray hair and I've had more experience to report back to you. So I'm here today to answer the question, will ditching the dye make me look older? And if you want to hear my thoughts about that, please stay tuned. I'm going to start with a spoiler. The answer is both yes and no. And the reason why I say the answer is yes is in part because gray hair is symbolic of age and wisdom. So when you yourself are showing that particular symbol in your human form, it's more common that people will perceive you as being older and in some cases wiser. In the last 6 months, I have had at least 3 encounters where folks have assumed that I'm older than I am. Now I'm 45, I went gray early as a combination of just genetics, this happens in my family, and the aggravating effects of stress. I had a pretty stressful younger part of my life, and I think that that accelerated the turnover of my dark hair into silver hair. So I've been dyeing my hair since I was 25, and I did that up until about 42. So I'm 45 now, and in the last 6 months, I've had several people clock me to be like 50 plus. One of these people was a stranger to me, a gentleman at a security situation where he was helping me get through the conveyor belt. He was 53 and he just assumed that we were about the same age. The same thing happened with a woman I worked with who knew me better, knew me for years, and knew me while I was going through the gray hair transition. She's also about 53, and she said at one point something about people our age. And I took it, we're both Gen X and we're not that far apart. We're 8 years apart. Once you get to a certain part of your life, you kind of are roughly the same age. When she did ask me how old I really was and I said 45, it created a little bit of an awkward moment. And the other thing that's happened, and this isn't necessarily inappropriate, I just can feel the pull into like the older demographic. People will assume, they'll ask me point blank, have you gone through menopause yet? And I think that's because the assumption is that I must be in my 50s because my hair is silver. So I say all of that to say that if you're like me and you went gray young, profoundly gray, younger than average, and you choose to adopt it, I just want to give you a heads up that it's probably going to happen from time to time that people do think that you are older than you are. That can happen. But I also wanted to note in each of those cases, it was a friendly comment from someone who was in the age bracket that they were bringing me up to meet them at. It wasn't an unfriendly or like a criticizing conversation. It was more like, oh, you must be just like me. I see you have gray hair. Maybe I can talk to you about some of these age-related topics that matter to me, specifically the menopause conversation. That's been the one that I've been invited to more. But on the completely other side, I was at a holiday party between Christmas and New Year's at a friend's house. My friend, who's in his 50s, has recently married a gentleman in his 30s. They have a wide age gap. This younger gentleman is a lovely man, and we were talking about age and all of those details, and I told him that I was 45, and he was shocked. He said,
"Girl, I thought you were 35.
And I said, well, what about my hair? My hair is all gray. And he's like, no, I thought that was blonde. I thought that was pretty interesting because 35 is a lot closer to his age, and he was pulling me closer to his age, and the other folks were pulling me closer to their age. So it's hard for me to know if I look one way or another, but the reality is that people bring their own imprint, their own expectations, and their own sense of themselves and their own age, their own feelings about aging to you, and you serve in some ways as a mirror for them and you reflect back to them. And so I'm going to just take it as a compliment that in either case, a younger man, people who are just a little bit, just slightly older than me, want to pull me in closer to them to align with what they're feeling about their age. So I'm not taking that as either here nor there about how I'm looking, just about how people see themselves and how I reflect that back to them. I hope that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. I'm not sure I said it as elegantly as I understand it internally. I think the real issue for me isn't do I look older? It's, do I look better? And one of the things I did in preparation for this video is go through my selfies on my iPhone. And I looked at photos of myself while I was still dyeing my hair and photos today. Now, I stopped dyeing my hair 4 years ago, so the reality is that years have passed, and in some cases, I was looking at photos of myself that are 8 years old. So I just do look older because time has passed. So also recognizing that I wasn't really looking for if I looked older or younger, but do I look better? And one of the things I can say for myself is that I think that I look better now. And one of the main reasons for that is that my coloring, my natural coloring that you're seeing here, is sort of neutral leaning cool. And while I was dyeing my hair, in almost every case, my stylists were helping me dye my hair to a color that was much, much warmer than was native to my own coloring, which threw off my skin tone and in some cases washed me out. In US culture, there seems to be a bit of a bias against ashy and cool tone natural hair colors, either kind of like light ash blondes to ash brunettes. There's always a desire to warm up that hair with highlights or other mechanisms, but sometimes that actually doesn't really do you a service, especially if your natural tones are cool. In these pictures, I think some of the times when I was dyeing my hair that I looked best is when I was dyeing it a deep red, which was extremely hard to maintain. Once I started moving into the lighter strawberry kind of golden blondes, that's really when those tones started working against me, I think. And I genuinely think that I look better today with my icy silver hair than I did with my warm toned bright blonde. When I started growing out my natural silver hair and going through the transition process, it also lined up with the pandemic, so there wasn't really much else to pay attention to, so I spent a lot of time looking at myself in the mirror, tracking the time that it was taking for my hair to grow out, taking selfies. And one of the things I noticed is that depending on the day, one day to the next, sometimes even in the same day, I would look older or younger depending on the makeup I was wearing and the clothes I was wearing. And I want to show you some of those photos. These slides are a series of pairs of photos that were taken roughly around the same time, but show me in different clothing and makeup colors that seem to make a big impact, at least to my eye, on how I look. And this is how I began to learn a little bit more about which colors look best on me. At some point, I really want to do a formal, professional color analysis, but in the meantime, I've just been sort of doing this at home with what I have and with my camera, and then looking back. One of the best things I can do to improve the way I look is to use the makeup colors that are right for me and to choose clothing colors that are right for me. I've also noticed on me personally, this is just me and you might be different, but for me, I've noticed that when my clothing is crisp and shows some high contrast, that I feel more put together and I look more energetic than when my clothing is maybe messy or disheveled. Maybe this seems obvious, but on a day-to-day basis, sometimes I don't pay attention to these things and just leave the house with whatever I have. Looking back, I can see the difference it makes when I'm wearing something high contrast, crisp lines, and the right colors for me. I just look better. In this photo in particular, this is taken on the very same day on the beach. I went to Miami last year, and in the photo with the jacket on, I had just gotten off the plane. It was my first crack at taking a picture on the beach. And then the second one was later at sunset. So the one with the dark blue dress with the high contrast trim, that was taken at sundown. It was the golden hour. I have very good lighting helping me. The lighting in the other picture is of course directly overhead and unflattering. But I think the real key here is that I don't think this pale lavender bomber jacket that I thought was so cute on the hanger, I don't think this bomber jacket is doing me any favors. In a previous video, I think I shared that someone had come up to me when I was in Miami with a friend who's just a few years younger than me and referred to me as her mother. I was wearing this very same jacket. I think this jacket needs to go to a friend. It's in perfect condition. It's really cute, but I actually think this jacket might not be doing me any favors. I think I'm better off in deeper colors. I've learned, I think, that I'm a winter and I do really well with the deeper colors. Just like this, these dark navies, maybe a little bit of contrast here just to keep it interesting, but these types of colors do tend to make my skin more luminous. They provide the contrast I need to, make my eyes pop, and they generally make me look more alive. I've also learned that I can handle a bright lip. For much of my life, I thought a bright lip was really just for the stage. I grew up with dance recitals and plays, and so I was used to wearing bright lips, but almost only ever in a performance context. basically never on a day-to-day basis. I usually stuck to my nudes. What I have learned now is that with the silver hair, my face can sometimes look a little washed out, and I wonder how many of you have experienced that as well. Those of you who have already gone gray, I'm finding that a very bright lip is more flattering for me than some of the neutrals, but more specifically, some of those like deeper, earthier, grungier tones. I don't think they're doing me any favors. I've also learned that a heavier, darker, warmer brow is probably the #1 most aging thing I can do to my face when I'm putting my makeup on. I've learned that what I really need is a very cool pencil, very lightly applied. I've had a lot of luck using those brow regrowth serums to get my hairs back. I am a victim of 90s over plucking, and I really needed that assistance to get some brows back. So having my own hairs and then also like very lightly applying a cool tone brow pencil, I've learned, I think, helps me to look better than a big, heavy, dark, warm brow. If you are finding yourself on the journey and you're so far wrestling with the fact that some days you feel like you look older and some days maybe you don't, I would recommend doing what I did. That's all I can say. I took a ton of photos of myself. I kept track of them on a day-to-day basis. And I started learning which days I looked and felt my best and which days I felt like I looked a little, you know, like older than I wanted to feel and a little more tired, heavier in the face, whatever that was. However you want to say it, you know, to my eye, there were days when I looked better and there were days when I did not look my best. And I started looking at what were the factors that I could control that were contributing to one or the other. I found that warm eyeshadow is absolutely aging and not my best look. So I put makeup on today that I thought illustrated what I've learned about myself. Now this might not be true for you. If you're very warm toned, these ashy grayer tones might look terrible on you. It might be something that contributes to you not looking your best. What I'm really recommending are not these specific products or colors, but that you go through an experiment of analysis with yourself. Take pictures of yourself. Take a look at those photos of yourself and try to figure out which ones you think look most like the way you feel today, the way you want to feel today. And be gentle with yourself while you're doing this. The choice to stop dyeing my hair meant that I had to really look at every color that I wear in my clothing and in my makeup, and also the way I apply these things, which areas of focus seem to matter more. All of this was really important in my journey. And finally, I just wanted to leave on this one note. I know that it's not fun to get older. I'm experiencing this myself. I'm still, you know, at 45, I'm still kind of in that age where I feel like I've got one foot in what I feel still is a youthful existence and another foot looking forward into, you know, the next stage of my life. And I'm wrestling with that myself right now. I'm not coming here to say that I've learned everything there is to know about aging. All I know is what I've learned so far. And I still remain grounded in the fact that I am so lucky to be here. You know, every year, you know, I'm sure this is true for all of you too, every year I'll lose somebody else in my social life or my family. And it brings into relief how grateful I am to still be here. And although aging isn't comfortable and it doesn't always feel good, I remain rooted in gratitude for being able to continue here with my life. I really do think that is the most important thing. And if you can protect your health, your sanity, your well-being in the process, you will feel your best. And when you're feeling your best, I think you just generally look better, even if that's just because you have a smile on your face. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like. It helps my channel so much. If you want to hang out with me again, I post videos on Sundays. I would love to have you back. Anyway, I hope that you are all doing well out there, and I hope you have a great week ahead. Thank you so much for watching. Talk soon.